There are a lot of things that you could do with your life. You could spend it looking up. You could spend it looking down. You could spend it looking forward. Or you can spend it looking back. You can spend your life sitting, standing, sitting again. Maybe walking. Nobody runs anymore. Sprint totally out of the question. Just walk. Just walk and sit and stand. And there's all these different ways that we can do these things. Most of them seem to be, from my perspective, my life experience and what I've been able to extrapolate from my surroundings, is that the driving force behind that comes from one emotion. The one emotion, some of you may be able to guess right away, is one that is really difficult to navigate when you have a world with as much stimulus as we have right now. We are constantly bombarded, both visually and audio, smell, everything, with things that can lead us away from the moments where we do start to figure out that this is the emotion that's driving some of the decision making on, well, really everything. So it's all the decision making. When you walk away from this emotion for the first time and sit and observe it instead of living inside of it, you'll notice something interesting. When you go and visit friends, family, you go to the store, anytime you have a social interaction, really, you will begin with time, as you gain experience with this, you'll begin to start seeing something very particular when it comes to the look on people's face, their body language, the tone of their voice, the pacing of their conversation, what they're focused on. All of these things will suddenly be glaring to you, and it gets more pronounced as time goes on. Now, the trap, I think I can safely say at this point, for that is to end up in a place of this parallel divine judgment, where you are essentially just existing very cognitively in the agreed upon reality, three-dimensional reality that we operate in as a whole. And essentially, we I'm going to take a left here real quick. No matter what, sometimes we end up getting back into script mode. That's what just happened there. I started to get into script mode. And I've been working on catching myself in script mode. I spent a great deal of time in script mode. Script mode was my default mode even when I was by myself, and I didn't recognize that until I think yesterday. It was a lot to process, realizing that the version of yourself that you most closely associated with your most true, honest, real version of you turns out to be a fabrication of a fabrication, which is wild. My ego created this fake spiritual persona that would do exactly what I was going to earlier, which is look at people in a parallel sense. Just look at them in a social sense, and then look at them in a divine sense, and picking the divine way of interacting socially so that social rules aren't something I have to abide by. And I did that for a very long time and told myself so many different times that, I just understood better. Or if they only knew, then, they could be essentially an asshole too. And I remember the very first time I was told to act. I was 5 years old. I was living in South Florida, and I was at my grandparents' pool, and I loved their property. They lived in Naples, Florida, lived right next to some water, right down the street from the grocery store. My grandfather, he lived so close to Larry Bird that people apparently would come by the house thinking it was Larry Bird's house. And eventually, at one point, he put up a sign that said, "This is not Larry Bird's house." So, solid place. Yeah, I remember being out by the pool. I believe I was 5 or 6 at the time, visiting my grandparents. And I remember being by myself. And I remember the grass being this lush, 5-inch grass, just beautiful, soft stuff. And I used to play in it all the time. And I remember running around there and going in and out of the screen area. And at some point, I got stopped. And I heard this voice say, "Start acting." And I had no reference to what a voice in your head is supposed to be. This was super normal for me. Everything new was normal. So I was like, okay, I just jumped on board. I was like, I'll start acting. And it started there. And it didn't get into a place where I could observe it and pause it until yesterday. And so I believe that as somebody that wanted to start a podcast, that starting it off with the most current, relevant, and honest way of expressing myself was the way to go. So that's what I'm doing. If you figured it out earlier what the emotion was, great. If not, the emotion earlier that I was discussing was fear. Fear is actually a very friendly emotion or response whenever you cultivate a healthy relationship with it. If you've ever seen the movie, what was it with the cartoons? Cartoons in the head with the emotions. It was Inside Out. Inside Out is, to me, by and large, one of the most helpful tools visually available in movie format to explain and remind us that our emotions are not something to be disgusted by or afraid of, or like our response to our emotions should be acceptance and to feel them, not to reject them. You will feel disgust, you will feel sadness, you will feel fear, you will feel angry, reactionary, you will feel all these different things. And that's okay. Just let it pass on through. And at the decision-making moment, most of us, because of our way our brains are programmed to protect us, we jump to the fear one right away because we want to protect ourselves. And that's a very valid response. Actually means your system is working as intended. Unfortunately, it's not supposed to work as often as it does. And so I am going to go into what is something I have learned from many of my friends, past and present, that can help you navigate that fear. And this is something that's physiological. This is something scientific. This is something that is how your body works. It doesn't involve a belief system. It doesn't involve a school of thought. It is tried and tested, and it works. So, essentially, whenever your system receives a stimuli that activates the flight or fight reflex, there has to be some amount of tension already located around the base of your spine during that time. Now, if you are able to relax your pelvic floor completely, when the stimuli reaches you, your fight or flight reflex will not activate. This is a major reason why yogis sit in the position that they sit, why Buddhists sit in the way that they sit. The meditation stance is the stance to be in to check whether or not your pelvic floor is relaxed. If you do this now and you feel tension in your back, your shoulder, then it's probably not. You have to release tension all over your body before you can fully relax your pelvic floor. So this is why a lot of people from different groups do mention like doing yoga or stretching of some sort. So, just remember that if somebody's telling you to stretch and they're kind of like annoying about it, like, I know people can be overbearing and respect each other and don't tell anyone what they should and shouldn't do. Just know that those people who are saying it aren't saying it to try to be controlling, at least most of the time, hopefully. But it's out of love. When you do get on I'm going to take this seriously routine with stretching your body to the best extent possible. We're all different. We all have different bodies. So do whatever you can. Don't tell someone else what their limits are. We all have to figure that out for ourselves. But essentially, if you can do that, stretch your body out to the point where you can get to that physically, then you will be able to start re-regulating your system. This involves being able to reduce the intensity of your response to things, which reduces the amount of energy that your body is going to require to metabolize that stress. If you can get your fear response down, when those thoughts come up, it takes less time out of your day. I mean, it just snowballs at some point as far as the positive side effects. Now, I will say, I'll be totally honest, at the beginning, it sucks. There's nothing fun about stretching at the very beginning if you've been out of it for a while. I am somebody who has been back and forth since I was in high school doing fitness. And as someone who did it for